We are celebrating 90 years of the Michigan Chronicle, recognized 5 times as the best Black newspaper in the country. Founded in 1936 with a mission to serve Detroit and its Black community. And shared stories often untold and brought to light through dedicated reporting and discussions about critical issues. Those decades of focused journalism sparked an idea: pancakes and politics, bringing together leaders of diverse backgrounds to talk about business, politics, and the community. Today's conversation is a CEO Roundtable. We'll hear from Joy Harris, President and Chief Executive Officer of DTE Energy, Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter, and Jeff Donofrio, President and Chief Executive Officer of Business Leaders for Michigan. Our moderator today is Dennis Archer Jr., Chairman and CEO of 1642 Ventures. Today's Pancakes and Politics is presented by PNC Bank and in partnership with these platinum sponsors: Bedrock, DTE Energy, and Walker Miller Energy Services. Now, here's the president of Real Times Media, Kathy Nett.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final forum of the 2026 Michigan Chronicle Pancakes and Politics Speakers Series. I want to thank everyone for joining us this season. And we saved the best for last. Today is the CEO Roundtable. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this morning. And at this time, I want you to join me in welcoming to the podium Mr. Hiram Jackson, the CEO of Real Times Media and the publisher of the Michigan Chronicle.
Morning. I want to just say it really is truly a pleasure to be able to do these. And so when June comes, it's great that we don't all have to get up so early to get over here. But next month, I miss it normally. So I'll be looking for you guys in July at 6 o'clock, and then I'll just roll back over and realize I don't have to get up. But thank you. As Kathy said, this is the last session for the 2026 season. For those of you who are new to Pancakes and Politics, in fact, is there anyone where this is the first session ever for you? Raise your hand. Great. That's amazing. That's amazing. For 21 years, we have had this dialogue in the spring of every year as a conversation. We bring together folks from all 4 counties, racial diversity, gender diversity, age diversity, because we believe that when you have big public policy issues, everyone should have a voice at the table, and no conversation should be off the table. So we're really proud that we've been able to maintain the kind of credibility and integrity in the conversation, and it's really all because we got great partners. Great partners that help finance this dialogue, and PNC has been our #1 sponsor, presenting sponsor for the last 10 years. Please give them a round of applause. But I'll also say that in the last 21 years, we've probably have only had to replace maybe 7 or 8 sponsors in the 21-year period. So that means that our partners, our sponsors believe in the work, and we're proud to partner with them. Partners like DTE, Bedrock, Walker Miller Energy Services, Delta Dental, Business Leaders for Michigan. But if you bought a ticket or a table, if you're here, we appreciate you, and we appreciate your support. I'd like to bring up Mr. Michael Bickers. Mike is a good friend, as those of you who attend know. He's been a great supporter. He's the Pancakes and Politics #1 cheerleader, and I just admire the work that he does, and we talk personally a lot. And so please, Mr. Bickers, president of PNC Detroit and Michigan.
Like the last one, I take all the time I didn't take in the first three. You know, Hiram and I, from Highland Park, I used to live in a 4-family flat on Buena Vista, and I think I could see him acting up on his street on Sturtevant somewhere, you know, back in the day. But as you all know, we like to feature folks and organizations that are in the business of helping people who need help. And so we continue to do that, and that is why we will feature with a short video to tell their story, our team from Oakland Family Services. If you could stand, Dave Tyndall. It is great to have you guys. I'm glad you accepted our invite, David and Jamie, and thank you so much for the work you do over 105 years, providing support around foster care and mental health and families that need us most. Thank you. So in the past couple of weeks, here's what we've done at PNC, because we mean what we say and we say what we mean. Jackson Home, did anybody get a chance to visit that? So we were the presenting sponsor for the grand opening celebration at Greenfield Village of the movement of the Jackson Home, owned by Dr. Jackson in Selma, Alabama, where the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was framed out. Dr. King and a whole bunch of other great folks. And so we were there, and it was like just the celebration for the weekend. It was just amazing. I had a chance to spend some moments with Joanna Jackson, their daughter, and it was like standing on hallowed ground. And 4 semi-trucks it took to move that little home here. 4 deconstructed, reconstructed, and a whole bunch of updates, of course, but the just reproduction is just absolutely astounding. Then we had a chance to go visit with the folks at Kintsugi last week. They took the former St. Vincent Elementary School and turned it into one of the finest early childhood education facilities you'll ever see. Then my friend Mary Mbaya from Cass Community Social Services agreed to come speak to my team for our Juneteenth event last Thursday, an elegantly connected Juneteenth and its history with the power of voice for the future. So thank you, Mary. I really appreciate you. But we did not forget the seniors as well. So we have arranged for millions of dollars. I think Kate, who runs millions of dollars in debt and equity for River Towers on the east side. And for our wonderful seniors, that will become 472 units of some of the finest housing a senior would ever want to live in. So that's what we've been up to. Lastly, before the video, Hiram, I think I got 3 minutes. Talent and diversity at PNC is no joke. It is my job. And so we were fortunate enough, if you all know Gina Coleman. Yeah. So Gina became, in this market, an executive vice president at PNC a couple weeks ago. But here's the thing, and I don't often brag about us with competitors in the room, but she would be the 3rd on my floor around the corner from me, African-American female, named an executive vice president right here in this market. There is no other bank that can claim it, I guarantee it. So thank all of you for your engagement. Thank you for making these so wonderful. Thank Hiram and Dennis and Hiram's team and my team for the collaboration. And now we'll tell you the story of Oakland Family Services.
Family. It's the foundation of our lives. If we're fortunate, that foundation is forged by love and trust that grows stronger with each day and every moment we share together. But sometimes that foundation gets fractured. The North Star we have followed grows dim, we lose our way, and in time we lose hope. For nearly a century, Oakland Family Services has been helping repair those foundations because we believe that beneath the barriers facing Michigan families, there is boundless possibility. Possibility we harness through innovative programming guided by 3 principles: prevention, education, and treatment. Those programs help us heal relationships to build stronger, safer homes. teach children to realize their true potential through education, and empower individuals plagued by addiction or mental health issues to reclaim their lives. So visit oaklandfamilyservices.org today to join us in building brighter futures for Michigan families and help create communities we can all be proud to call home.
Please welcome to the stage, Dennis Archer Jr.
At least I got some news. So Hiram says, I'm going to get up here and introduce you. I say, great, it's the last one. And then they took the podium. So I guess I can't. So this is Hiram's part. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dennis Archer Jr. for 30 plus years. And he is amongst the brightest, most talented individuals and one of the best friends that anyone could ever have. Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Archer Jr. Thank you, Hiram. We're going to jump right into it this morning because we got so much to talk about. And I honestly I got 11 pages of notes up here. And I'm about to go way off script for better or worse because there's just so much currently, as recently as this morning, that I continue to digest and learn that I think we need to talk about. But I can't do it without my amazing panel, who I'm going to invite to come up. First is dear friend Joy Harris. And the good thing about these panels, I don't need these notes. I mean, we know these people. So Joy has had an absolutely esteemed career at DTE, where she presently serves as president and CEO. But I'm not going to give you the number of years that she's been there. But okay, she said it. 35 years, literally working her way to the top, and has just done an outstanding job. Her predecessor speaks, and spoke tremendously and continues to speak tremendously about her. She's very well respected by not only the people in the towers, but the people out in the streets and on the polls and in the field. So Joy, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
David Coulter, who most recently, for those of you who are in Mackinac, proved himself extraordinarily comfortable in a room full of Black people. But David is no stranger to politics. He was the mayor of Ferndale, went on to be a commissioner for Oakland County before now being the executive. And, David is a true friend to Detroit and to Wayne County. One of the first things that he really pushed through and supported was transportation, so that folks in Detroit could get to the job opportunities in Oakland County. And although we loved your predecessor, he wasn't so in favor of that. God bless you, Brooks. Jeff Donofrio. Jeff is president and CEO of the Business Leaders for Michigan, and that evolved right out of Detroit Renaissance. It did, yeah. It evolved, which has been for decades now an organization of the largest job creators and job providers and businesses in the state, as they gather and has become more formal, much more formal, I think, under Jeff's leadership, to address a lot of the problems, opportunities, and challenges ahead of us as a state. And I will comment that because we are the Chronicle, that I have seen over time the organization become more diverse than it historically was. And so we appreciate that. And thank the three of y'all, thank you for being here. Now, I'm just going to say this, and this is Dennis, this is not Hiram or the Chronicle saying this, but I personally feel in a lot of ways that we are under attack. I mean, every time we look at the news, I mean, this morning, we hear that constitutionally we are under attack here in the state of Michigan when, the powers that be are trying to get access to our voter rolls so they can see who votes where. And who knows what they want to do with that in August and November. It's a clear constitutional violation that's now being fought in courts. I watched the news last week, and one of our leaders in Lansing was commenting as he was considering a run for higher office, how one of his priorities, Dr. Vitti, is to get the woke curriculums out of school and focus on American history. He should be focusing on why our educational system statewide is at the bottom of the country. And then I read Sunday in the New York Times about, unanimously the person that was put up from within the Navy administration to run the Navy was passed over. A brother was passed over despite the suggestions from the team evaluating the candidates, had him ranked first. Hedgepeth passed him over, citing him going out of his way to recruit and promote diverse candidates. And so I just leave you with that. That's not our discussion for today, but I hope you all digest that and take that home and figure out what you all can do. If that troubles you like it troubles me, like it troubles Hiram, like it troubles the Chronicle, I hope you all take that home and decide to help to do something about it. Now, I'm going to skip my opening because I put it there. So we're just going to jump into the discussion today. And it's really around, we call this our CEO discussion, but it's our CEO discussion to talk about how we make our state more competitive, how we do better. We have so many assets, tremendous assets. But if you saw the assets that we have, a workforce, the landscape geographically, the entrepreneurial skill set, the number of patents. I mean, you can go down the list, the water, the land that we have, but we just are not getting the traction compared to some of our regional competitors, Ohio, Indiana, et cetera. So I want to talk about how we get there. But first, and I did the same thing with the governor last session, is I would love to get you all's take on the state as a whole. And that is, this is not a political question. This is how we as stakeholders and business people and leaders in the state are doing collectively. So give us a grade, A being the highest, and then, you can go to F. I don't think we're an F, but just so we can set a foundation for the balance of the discussion. Jeff, we'll start with you because I see Joy's down here thinking.
All right. Well, first, thanks, of course, for having all of us here. I'm so glad that we're continuing to be a sponsor of Pancakes and Politics and able to join you here this morning. We just came out with a CEO survey. We do this quarterly. We ask, our board is made up of about 100 CEOs. Collectively, they represent about 40% of the state's economy, though. And so their viewpoints really have an outsized effect on where Michigan is going, and they see where Michigan is going. So this time last year, 80% of our CEOs thought Michigan and the U.S. economy would decline. If you go to the first quarter of this year, that fell to 30%. If you come to May, that rose to 60%. So there's ups and downs, I think, that we see continuously, and a lot of it is affected by things that are not happening here in the state of Michigan, right, that are outside our control. So if we look at where Michigan is, the question is, what can we control? What can we do to help make Michigan a more competitive state? Right now, I think everybody in this room loves Michigan. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. I think A+ state from that perspective. I've moved back from living in Washington, D.C. about 11 years ago because I believed in Michigan's future. I think where we see our numbers, though, is that there's been a continual slide in the last 10, 20, 30 years from where we were a top 10 or a top 20 state in a lot of rankings, whether that's income, whether that's education, whether that's population, to where we are today, which is a bottom 10 state in a lot of those categories. So we're 44th for fourth grade reading. We're 42nd overall for education in our education system. We are 40th in per capita income. States that we once thought were way behind us and would never catch up, like Mississippi, are now telling us how we should be looking at literacy. They've gone from 49th to 9th. So I'd say there are so many good things about Michigan. We're still a top 10 state in R&D, as you said. We've got the highest concentration of engineers of any place in the country. We've got to take what's good about Michigan and make sure that we can turn those other trajectory numbers around.
So, Jazzy Jeff, I am a lawyer, so
Yep.
let's pretend you're on a witness stand. That was a non-responsive answer.
You know, it's almost like I've been
you got to give us an A,
25
B,
years.
A, B, C, D. Give us a score.
Incomplete is what I'll say.
Oh, fair.
Complete.
All right.
Well done. Yeah.
All right.
That's,
We're gonna let you go with that.
all right.
Joy.
I'd say it depends on what you're asking about. So the state, we have a beautiful state, as Jeff said. So many beautiful gems all across this great state. We have, I call it Detroit grit, Michigan grit, that is served us well for decades. But we are seeing kinks in the armor, and Jeff named off a few. But I think this state has promise, certainly promise. And I see it in our young people. I see it in the universities that I visit. I see it in the business leaders that I engage. And so if I had to give it a grade on where we rank just by the numbers, we're probably a C. But if I had to give it a rank on just what progress I think we can make and what our potential is, I'd give us an A. I'm an optimist about Michigan. I think we have some of the most talented people in this state, in this country, and we need to just collectively get out of our own way and put those great people to work and make sure that they are equipped with all the resources they need to do great things.
David.
I'm also an optimist. I think this is a great state, and they both acknowledge that. And it's really important to acknowledge our challenges and problems and roll up our sleeves and get to work on them and not bury our head in the sand that they don't exist or they're somehow just that the market or the future will resolve itself. And we don't always do that well enough. But the opportunities here are greater than the challenges. And not just the opportunities, but what we currently have. Now, maybe I'm biased. There's a lot of things working right in Oakland County. We have the highest per capita income. We have more engineers and R&D. We have a strong economy. We have very safe and strong local communities.
That's because you took everybody from Detroit.
Everybody.
We didn't take them. They left for a reason.
Everybody.
And I don't have a problem when they move back.
There you go.
Mayor Duggan and I used to talk about this. I said, I got no problem with all these 20-year-olds moving to Midtown and downtown. I love it because they're not moving to New York and California and these other places, because I think by the time they get in their 30s and they want to, yes. And I said, I have a hunch that by the time they get in their 30s and they're looking to settle down and raise a family, and they might just come back to Oakland County too. So it's easier to get them from Detroit than from Los Angeles. So I'm optimistic about that. I'm optimistic about Detroit and the progress that's been made there and the relationships that we've built as a region. I think we finally figured out that the old us versus them in terms of counties and cities and all that crap is not serving us well. And so we have become stronger as a region. We become more competitive as a region against other regions in the country. And those things are very encouraging. And that doesn't mean we don't have problems. And I applaud Jeff's group for really putting a spotlight on the educational issues that he talked about. And that's a bipartisan failure over decades. But for some reason, all of a sudden, it's dawned on us how far we've slid. And in part, it's because of the effectiveness of business leaders of Michigan. Business leaders like DTE and others have been talking about our schools and the importance of it for years. But Jeff's group has done a really good job. We need to tackle all of our issues with the urgency and the collaboration that we're doing around education. So, to me, we're a B+. And we just gotta be a little bit more mindful about tackling some of these greater challenges, and we'll be back to being an A like we were.
Notice I gave you the grades.
Right, you did. Right.
What did I do?
So, it's interesting because I think back to my first year of law school, after which they tried to bounce me out of there because of my grades. And I wish then I could have said,
incomplete.
I wish I could have talked about, but I should get an A because of my promise and my potential. And I wonder if they would have bought that up in Ann Arbor. But I would agree with a C. I mean, I think that if you look at the fundamentals, not hope, not potential, not the Great Lakes, but if you look at the things that you can apply a metric to, there's room for improvement.
Sure.
And this is not incumbent upon the governor, the state house, the school superintendents, the county exec. This is incumbent upon all of us in the room to move the state forward. And so I look forward to continuing to be a part of that effort. You know, this morning, you know, we continue to hear, we're going to talk about data centers, and it's actually welcoming because, you know, normally when you come to forums like this, we talk about, can we all get along? We talk about education. We talk about regional transportation, which, David, I'm sure you may want to touch on anyway. This is a fresher topic. And as recently as this morning, they talked about the report that was released by the Michigan Chamber and the Detroit Regional Chamber, where they both are very much in favor of data centers, but they had some suggestions regarding perhaps how we could smooth the process out by being more transparent, having certain real estate or taxes or revenue guarantees from the owners and developers. But before we can have that discussion, Joy, I think it's important to level set, because a lot of this comes back to our power providers, and it comes back to you. And you've got two agreements. I think you've got an Oracle project that's in Saline that is under construction, and you got a agreed upon Google situation where it's going through the process. We see in the last couple of days on the steps of the state capitol, you know, big banners, no to data centers. And if you think back to innovation, I mean, from the cell phone to the automobile to airplanes, even now to the Amazon drones we hear buzzing over our heads. There's always pushback when innovation comes before us initially. And if you look back historically, some of it is grounded in concern that is justified, but I would venture to say the majority of it is rooted in misunderstanding and people only reading the headlines and not delving into the details. So I want to go into the details a little bit with the three of you because you have interesting perspectives. But can we talk about just how it works, how you have to interact with Lansing, how you are regulated? Because I don't think everyone understands that.
Sure. As it relates to data centers in particular. So yes, we do have two agreements for 2.4 gigawatts of new load for this state, which is amazing if you think about what that represents in terms of opportunity and affordability benefits for our customers. This has been a journey. And what everyone should know, first and foremost, is data centers are already a part of our everyday life. It's the underpinnings of your banking transactions. It's the underpinnings of your medical transactions. We use data. We use data centers. They're part of your everyday life. It fundamentally underpins your entertainment as well. So you probably, if you drove here, you probably passed by 2, 3, 4 data centers on your way here. They're embedded in our community already. What we're talking about are big hyperscalers. These are really large facilities, largely to support AI, but they're not only supporting AI, they're supporting cloud computing, they're supporting inference, they're doing training. And the facilities that we will support, and everybody thinks DTE is constructing the data centers. No, we are the energy provider. And as their energy provider, we have an obligation to serve. As an operator here in Michigan, as a regulated utility, that means that any customer, whether it is a hyperscaler or a manufacturing facility or someone who's choosing Michigan as their home, we have to serve them. We can't pick and choose who we serve. But when we have a large customer like a Google or an Oracle, we develop a special contract with them, and it defines how we will serve them, what resources we will provide so that they can consume the energy and conduct their business. But we can't do that alone. We have to get the approval of the Michigan Public Service Commission through a legal process in order to serve that customer. And we've gone through that process for Oracle. We're in the midst of that process for Google. So it is a really intense process where testimony is filed, where we provide a lot of data, but at the end of the day, we have to follow what the law requires. And the law requires that any hyperscaler that chooses Michigan must pay their own way. They must pay for all of the resources required, energy resources required to serve them. That means if I have to build a power plant, if I have to build a substation, if I have to install new transmission or new distribution infrastructure, they have to cover their cost entirely. We cannot subsidize data center load growth on the backs of our existing customer base.
Can I tap in there? Because there's a thought or a view that's out there that, oh, if a data center comes, my rates at my house are going to go up. That's not true.
That is not true. It can't. The law prohibits us from using cross-subsidization. In fact, what happens when we bring on large load customers like hyperscalers, they cover a good portion, more than their fair share of the fixed cost to operate the system. So bringing on new load puts downward pressure on rates. It doesn't increase rates so long as they're paying their own way. Growth has to pay for growth, and they are paying for it. And so what we are building are batteries, we're building renewables. We're actually going to increase the renewable production of energy by way of these hyperscalers, which is fantastic. That puts us ahead of the curve of what the law requires for us to consume and build new clean energy. So I will say that for those that don't fully understand it, I use a simple analogy. Think of the fixed cost as the cost for an Uber ride. So let's just say that Uber ride is $100, and Dennis and I are going to share that Uber, and we're both going to pay $50. But we then recruit Dave and Jeff to ride in that same Uber. So now Dennis and I are no longer paying $50. We're now paying $25 each. That's how this works. The fixed cost to operate the system is spread across more load. And because hyperscalers consume so much load, they consume a lot of that fixed cost, 25% in fact. So this is how the system is designed, and we are unique. Michigan is positioned to serve as the national example of how to develop data centers responsibly.
That's going to get us to the B+.
That'll get us to an A if we do it the right way going forward.
David, I don't know. I've not seen whether you have taken a position for or against, or what if you've polled your constituency, but what's Oakland County's position on data centers?
We don't have a position because county government technically doesn't have a role in this process, a legal role in the process. The planning and zoning for the centers happen at the local level. Any quote unquote guardrails or legislation that you're going to do to protect communities happens either at the state level or it could happen at the federal level. So I don't have an official voice in it. But I'm not using that as an excuse. I got lots of issues that I have to deal with. And fortunately, has done a wonderful job at navigating this for the utilities. But I will say this, because I used to be a mayor and I sometimes put on the hat of, okay, if this was coming to my community, how would I navigate this in the community? I can't remember a political issue, and I'm being a politician here in this answer, where there's such a disconnect between what the people think and believe and what the policymakers and business leaders and developers are trying to do. I mean, the bipartisan opposition that people on the ground have to these, you saw the example of that yesterday. You had Republicans and Democrats from both, from far ends of the spectrum saying, we've got concerns, we've got questions, we're scared of this for lots of different reasons. And Dennis, you said that you think a lot of that is from misinformation. I don't have the luxury of going to my voters and residents and saying, you just don't understand. Just wait. Okay. So we have to do a better job. And by the I'm not talking about me. It's not my job to defend this. Joy is absolutely right. These are already here. People don't understand that. So we have to do a much better job. I think where we have not done that is on the part of the developers themselves. I don't think it's fair to make the poor township supervisor in Lyon Township or the CEO of DTE, who has to supply the power one way or the other. This is going to be a customer of theirs, that whether they want it or not. The developers themselves need to do a better job. We need to get rid of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, so that politicians can't talk about these projects. We need to have more transparency. They need to be more honest about what the community benefits are. And I think that will go a long way to assuage it. Not everybody. There'll be some people that just don't want it because they're afraid of AI in the future. You always have that group of NIMBYs. But I think the reasonable people, their concerns are valid and they haven't been addressed. And we have to do a much better job about doing that.
Yeah, I think that, and then we're going to come to you, Jeff, but I do think, that the transparency issue is a large one, because if you look, there are a number of developers that are in the room here. And when you go, no matter what community, Detroit, Oakland County, Washtenaw County, but when you go to a community to do a development, whether the community demands it or not, you are smart to go engage with the community months and months and months ahead of any public announcement to get their buy-in, to bring them on board, to get their input. And I don't know that that's not being done, but it would seem from the coverage that that's not being done to the extent that it does happen if someone's just going to go build a Walmart or an apartment building. And this is far more large scale, hyper scaled in this instance. And so I do think that transparency and that effort, because I'm in favor of these, and I hope that we get many more in our state. And I think that a little effort up front would go a long way. Jeff, your thought, and I think Joy has something else, but Jeff, do you, has business leaders, have you guys taken a formal position here?
You know, we were part of the study actually that came
out today.
Okay. So we helped, construct that. I think the overall message I would say here is Michigan actually was very thoughtful about the data center regulations that they put in place in compared to other states where you might see some of these issues, being something that, people want to avoid, that they're concerned about. And I think Dave's point, there's legitimate concerns with any development project that need to be addressed. So, the fact that we have almost 100 data centers or more in the state already, the fact that there is, probably in every generation, there's a few examples of economic disruption and engines that come along. You think about the interstate highway system. You think about railroads coming in. You think about, advanced manufacturing. It disrupts the way that we as a society operate, but it also has a potential to bring a lot of opportunity as well. And my concern today is that because of all the noise in the system, if there are concerns, if there are challenges, there are ways to address that in almost any development project, right? We protect health, we protect safety, we protect the environment. But that we're going to wake up in 5 or 10 years and we're going to see that in the United States, $3 trillion worth of investment right now is deciding where to go, where to locate, where to put hyperscale, medium scale, small scale data centers. That's going to transform communities. You think about, Dennis, you talked about the innovation ecosystem. When we look at Michigan, since 2000, the United States has grown about 35% in those knowledge economy jobs, those jobs that pay way above the average wage in our country. Michigan's only grown about 3%. So we are already on our back foot here in the growth sector of those jobs. Creating a data center isn't necessarily going to create jobs itself, but it brings in fiber, it brings in infrastructure, it brings in talent, and it creates a stronger ecosystem for the growth of that type of R&D, innovation that's going to move forward. And so my concern right now is that there's so much noise in the system. We're not having the conversations about how to do this right, but also we're going to look back in 5 or 10 years and say, gosh, we may have missed a real opportunity for Michigan.
Yeah, if you look at, go ahead, Joy.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on the jobs conversation, because I think there is still some misunderstanding about what this development means. So I talked about the infrastructure that we will have to build. We'll build renewables, we'll build battery storage. Those are jobs.
That's right.
Celine, right now, there's probably 2,500 construction jobs associated with just one project. And when the hyperscalers come to town, they build their facilities, but they continue to modernize those facilities over time. So electricians will still be needed. HVAC professionals will still be needed. Pipe fitters will still be needed. So this is not a one and done kind of development. There will be continuous modernization that will happen once the facility is completed. And then on our side, we have to build 1.6 gigawatts of battery storage. 1.6 gigawatts of battery storage.
Is that the LG partnership that you guys are?
We did. We just signed a contract with LG, which is right here in Holland, Michigan, for 1.6 gigawatts of battery storage that is really worth $1.6 billion of investment for the state of Michigan. That's 1,800 jobs, 1,800 jobs right here in Michigan. We're using local suppliers to construct our facilities. Right. We're using local contractors. What we hear from electricians is that, thankfully, I don't have to travel all over the country to do work, to support my family. I can stay right here at home and work in my neighborhood and contribute to my, the development of my economy here, but be at home with my family at the end of the day. So there are lots of jobs associated with this construction, not just the construction of the facility, but the supporting infrastructure that happens. And if you go to Ohio and you look at New Albany, Ohio, where data centers landed, you'll see an ecosystem that formed around it. So technology companies want to be in close proximity to these types of facilities. So this development kind of cascades beyond just this one building. It will continue to grow. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. There will be winners and losers. There won't be data centers on every block. There won't be data centers in every state. And in terms of national security, we need them here in the continental US. We are a big data user. We use data to serve you better, to improve reliability, to use analytics to tell us when storms are headed so that we can better prepare for those storms and be responsive, get everybody's power back on if it goes out. This is the time where Michigan can be distinctive, but we have to make the choice and we have to do it the right way. There are legitimate concerns on the ground. And what I've been impressing upon the hyperscalers, when you come to town, tell the neighbors what your intentions are. Engage them.
Right.
Don't use funny names like Green Chilies Ventures or some weird acronym for your name. Use your brand, your Google, your Oracle, your Microsoft, your Amazon, whomever you represent. They need to see you. They need to know who you are. They need to know your intentions. And they need to know that you want to be a part of the fabric of this state.
Thank you. You mentioned jobs, and I want to go to talent, but I think you may have QR codes on your table, and my dear friend Rhonda Walker from WDIV is back here, who will be ready to take questions. I'm going to talk about talent for a second, and Rhonda, we're going to come to you. We have, tremendous industry. We have a lot of attractions. We've talked about it. We have businesses coming, but there's a talent shortfall for certain types of positions. You mentioned that. Jeff, have you guys, in your research and analysis, talked about what we can all do to help attract that talent? What do we need to do to bring them to the state, to reverse, Oakland County has had some growth. Detroit, I think for 3 years in a row now has had some growth, but the state continues to lose folks. And we still have a brain drain of younger college graduates leaving. Right. How do we reverse that?
Yeah, it's a lot of the growth that we celebrate in the state sometimes comes down to people moving from one part of the state to the other part of the state. And while, you know, a community growing is a good thing, we want to have a net positive into Michigan. Michigan is the second highest state in terms of the percentage of residents who are born in our state. So it means Michiganders love Michigan, but it means that we are challenged in recruiting those folks and attracting those folks who frankly are going to be part of our future. We're an aging state. We've gone from census numbers today actually out, put us from 35 to 40 as an average age over the last couple of decades. So we're continuing to age as a state, and that's going to put us in a position where it's going to be harder to afford the things that we need on infrastructure, on you know, supporting especially those who are aging. The question.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Of course.
So talk about surrounding states. I'm sure you know approximate numbers. Ohio, Indiana, who we talk about are immediate Midwest competitors.
Yeah.
What's their age? Is their average age going up or down?
I didn't pull those exact data this morning, but I'll tell you, they are working hard to grow faster than Michigan, and they are. So you look at Columbus. Columbus, you know, had just surpassed 1 million people. They are growing at a very fast clip. They're creating an innovation, you know, economy. They're attracting chip fab manufacturers. Young people, you know, move to places with opportunity first, right? You are likely not going to be moving to a place for very long and staying in a place very long if you don't have an ability to earn a living and a good quality of life. Now, the communities themselves matter too. You have to have the quality of life, the affordable homes, which is getting harder and harder as well because we make it very difficult to build the housing stock we need. So we've got to address a number of different things at the same time. It's not going to be a silver bullet that's going to help us. I will go back to, though, you know, as a state that has a high percentage of individuals who were born here, living here, we also have to make sure our education system is absolute top in the country so that those who are here, our kids, are getting the best tools and opportunities for the future. You know, you think about the education system, I think we get lost a lot of times in, you know, the policy fights or, you know, the kind of nostalgic fog of this. This is our ability as a society to arm the next generation with the tools to be successful, to have a better quality of life, to be, you know, in better jobs and better careers than us. It is incumbent on all of us that we give them the best possible opportunity and head start.
Thank you. So what has to happen? Rhonda, you ready? Yeah. All right, we're going to go to Rhonda Walker, ladies and gentlemen, who, by the way, is a scratch golfer, I understand.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. And I'm tagging Kylie Mitchell-Wells from Ballmer Group, our Ballmer Foundation. Good to see you. She's the executive director. Give us your perspective or a question.
Well, this has been a wonderful panel, and just interested to know, Joy, specifically from you, with DTE, how are you guys ensuring that the opportunities you mentioned for suppliers, for the talent, is accessible to those who have traditionally been locked out of contracting, as well as those good paying jobs that we know electricians and others can have?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done to support local suppliers, to embed them in the work that we're doing in service to our customers. Over the last decade, we've invested over $25 billion with Michigan suppliers. And so 55 cents of every dollar we spend is spent with a Michigan supplier. Last year alone, we invested roughly $5 billion to improve reliability, to transition to cleaner generation. And of that $5 billion, $3.3 billion was spent with Michigan suppliers. $1 billion of that was spent with Detroit-based suppliers. So we are going out of our way to ensure that there is access to this great work and that we are mentoring, particularly early development companies, on how they can continue to grow, partner with larger companies so that they can be a part of this renaissance that we see here in the state.
And Dennis, I know that was for Joy, but can I jump in for just a second?
Of course.
You said I was well received in a room full of black men up on Mackinac Island.
You busted right in there.
I busted right in. I wasn't even invited. But, well, you were right down the hall from me. I heard a noise down there and I popped my head in. No, but what I said there, and I want to say to this group as well, is Oakland County is committed to diversifying our vendor base and making sure that every business, and women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses have an opportunity. And I said, if you've applied for a contract with Oakland County before and it was too cumbersome, or it didn't work, apply again, because we're serious about doing that. But I wasn't just pandering to this group. I'm committed, and I believe very passionately that as leaders, it's our obligation to make sure that the opportunities that we create are available to everyone, equally and equitably to everyone. And I'm committed to that. And I'm committed to that because I think too many people for too long have been left out of the opportunities. But it also fuels some of this anxiety that we're talking about politically, and even around data centers. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago that said that the disparity between corporate profits and workers' wages has never been greater in the history of our country. And I'm a student of history. I remember Teddy Roosevelt busting up the monopolies because the disparity had grown too great. It's greater now than it's ever been. So part of the anxiety that we're hearing, that I'm hearing at the local level, is the American dream is slipping away. Some of the fear about data centers isn't about jobs or the environment. It's about the world is moving past me and I don't know how to keep up. And I feel like the system is rigged against me, and I don't hear anybody saying we want opportunity for everyone. And so we all need to be saying, and I said it to that group, but I say it to every group. My job isn't to help you do that. My job is to level the playing field so that everybody has the opportunity to be successful.
So, Jeff, while we're on opportunity, and Kylie, thank you for that question. You know, in the environment in which we are operating now, I'll leave it at that. You know, is there a general consensus among your membership? I'm not asking you your personal opinion, but is there a general consensus around the momentum that we've had for decades in Detroit and Southeastern Michigan, really around the state, in terms of providing opportunity, being a place where an entrepreneur, no matter your color, has a decent shot? People always talk about Atlanta being, you know, a hotbed for Black entrepreneurs. It's not nearly the hotbed that Detroit has been, but that's also under attack. You know, how's your membership talking or thinking about that? Being able to continue to provide opportunity.
Sure, I think there's a continued recognition that you know, Michigan has seen slow growth over time. It's grown, but that we've got to create more of an environment that everyone can succeed in, right? That there's an ecosystem where there's opportunity that people can grab onto if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an incumbent business, if you're someone who's trying to come to our state and grow. But there's also recognition that opportunity isn't, you know, talent is equally distributed, opportunity is not equally distributed.
That's right.
So how is it that we break down the barriers to that opportunity? It's one of the reasons why, you know, we're a state business roundtable. Our first priority we put out in our report is education, right? You'd say, well, is that what CEOs think about every day? And yes, they think about the K-12 system every day. Ron Hall, who's here, who is the chair of our K-12 committee, you know, puts enormous amounts of time as the chair of Skillman's board, as you know, a person who's on the Launch Michigan board, which is an organization that we helped set up that brings together education leaders and business leaders to say, how can we actually change the trajectory for our kids? Because there's a recognition that education is an opportunity engine. The more education you get, the more that we can remove barriers to opportunity in that K-12 system, in a higher education system, the better off we're going to be as a state. And I think CEOs are very deliberate in terms of, you know, they're data driven, right? They focus on, you know, yes, this is the outcome I'm looking for. Did everyone benefit from that outcome? And if not, what are the ways that we need to create a Grow Detroit's Young Talent Program to give 8,000 youth a chance to have a career pathway? What are the ways, when I ran workforce development in the city of Detroit, we had this great example of, we brought an issue to the workforce board that I managed. And we said, you know, there's a whole bunch of people who are not getting hired because they have this debt that was on the books. The state of Michigan had driver's responsibility fees to close a gap. Some of you remember this. It was, if you got a ticket for not having insurance, like because you couldn't afford insurance, they assessed a new charge, $2,000 for the next 2 years for you. So if you weren't able to pay for insurance in the first place, the likelihood you could pay for that fee was very low. Well, guess what? If you didn't pay that fee, you lost your driver's license. So 76,000 people have lost their driver's license in the state of Michigan, or excuse me, in the city of Detroit. 340,000 had lost it in the state of Michigan. More than $600 million worth of bad debt that would never be collected. They said, my God, none of us understood that this was happening. So of course we went and we approached, the Snyder administration. We approached the legislature. Mayor Duggan put in place a whole bunch of different lobbying efforts, and we got that debt completely wiped out. We got the law repealed, and it was those types of business leaders who said this is unacceptable, and if we want everyone to be able to have a chance to work at our companies, be able to for Detroit, because a lot of folks had to commute out of the city, have a driver's license to be able to do that, to find the jobs they needed in Oakland County or elsewhere. That's the type of approach I think CEOs take. How do we attack the problem? How do we make sure, though, that prosperity is not just for a small group of people, but it's widely shared?
Absolutely. Thank you. Joy.
We can jump in. There are 21 kids in our building right in this very moment. They're participating in a program called CAPE. It's Career Awareness and Preparation for Employment. And the whole objective is to explore the careers that are available to them, to pique their interest, but also to connect them to employers at the end of the day. So by the time they leave our building on the 4th day, the goal is for them to have a job lined up. And I can tell you one student, success story, Renasia. Renasia spent her senior year installing solar panels because she was connected to a company and offered a grant to do on-the-job training and get paid for it. And now she's installing solar panels. Our kids need to see the opportunities, but we need to help them connect to those opportunities. And I'm not alone. There are other companies that do similar programs where we're bringing the youth in, we're showing them the way, we're allowing them to learn, but we're paying them along the way as well. Because some of these kids come from households where they'll be the primary breadwinner for their home. We've got a partnership with Miller, where we're supporting the training of energy efficiency professionals. So they go through the boot camp, they learn about all the techniques around energy efficiency, and then they get employed with some of our suppliers. CEOs like myself across this great state are embarking on those types of programs, but we need to do more of it. It has to be an expansion of this type of effort.
That's right.
And then we will see things shift.
Yeah, thank you for that. Rhonda, you got something else for us?
I do. I have Len Cartman. He is from Henry Ford Health System here. What's your question?
Yes, so thank you guys for this amazing panel. Gave a lot of good information, but I did want to go a little further to the question I was just asked. So oftentimes, as a young leader, I hear we need to attract and retain talent in the state of Michigan. But then I look around the room, and when I'm in spaces like these, and I don't see many young people. And so I want to ask you guys in your respective fields, what things are you doing beyond internships and apprenticeship to make sure young people are in the rooms where decisions are being made? So they're not just the future workforce, but they're active partners in shaping the future of Michigan.
So
I guess that means we're not young anymore.
No, we're not. Sorry, Dennis.
All right.
So your question is, what are we doing to attract and retain talent and cultivate that talent once it's here so that they can be a part of the future that we're trying to co-create together? We go out of our way to support students. And I'll tell you, my story started as a co-op student. Actually, it started before I was even a co-op student. I was actually in the 10th grade when I shadowed engineers at then Michigan. And that turned into a co-op experience. And 35 years later, here I am. So what I would offer to you is my job is to pay it forward and to ensure that folks that look like me have similar opportunities. And we go out of our way to onboard, college students. We now have reached out to HBCUs and bringing on engineering students from HBCUs, providing them with housing so that they can work here in Michigan and build a relationship with Michigan and begin to work in Michigan to recruit talent here. We support GDYT. We support outreach to local colleges and communities so that they know that DTE is a place where you can learn and grow, but you can gain employment at the end of the day. But we're not alone. We also encourage our suppliers to do the same thing. So they're onboarding some of the same students to support our work to build more clean energy, to modernize the grid, but we're teaching them what it means to be a professional along the way. And there are many programs like this, but they're not enough. And that takes deliberate action. It takes a commitment. And I'm happy to say I'm hearing more interest in pursuing these types of partnerships, but let's just expand it. Everybody in this room probably has an opportunity to take on a student or two.
That's right.
And so that will be my challenge to you. How do we leave this room today and say, what are we going to do to commit to our youth opportunity so that we're not talking about what they're doing on the weekend or coming downtown or, you know, these teen takeovers. They need constructive work. And as a young person, that's what I learned, is I learned how to work at 16. These kids work if they're available.
And Dennis, my manager of workforce development is here. Jennifer, raise your hand. We are doubling down in Oakland County on this very same thing. You know, it's not enough to educate somebody and then they graduate and you say, okay, shop your resume. You've got to bring them in, help them understand what the opportunities are before. And so we're doubling down on apprenticeships and internships. And by internships, I want to be specific about paid internships because kids need to make a few bucks to do this these days. Things have changed for young people. We have to bring them in. I just had a conversation with Oakland University yesterday to say the most important thing you could do to help us right now is to engage the business community to provide more paid internships and apprenticeships. Because once a student sees and feels and gets paid to do something, their chances of success, their chances of getting hired by that company are much higher. And Jeff, I know you know that. And if they decide that that wasn't for them, then that's what they need to understand. And those are the things that are going to keep them in our region, keep them from moving away. So we got to engage them while they're in school, in apprenticeships and in paid internships and the like. And it takes an investment. And I'm saying this because if there's businesses here that don't have any paid internships, ask yourself why not, and reach out to an organization. If you're in Oakland County, we'll help you, but anywhere you're at, to do that, because it's a big part of the puzzle of keeping our young people here. And DT, by the way, does a great job at it. So congratulations on that. And I know, Jeff, you guys study this issue a lot.
Yeah, and maybe I can just pick up on it. And I want to reinforce, it's been mentioned a couple of times up here, Grow Detroit's Young Talent, which was a program that we helped grow from just a couple of thousand individuals having a summer youth experience, whether they're in high school or whether they're in college here from the city of Detroit, that strengthen the connections, that give them career pathways, that help provide those on-the-job skills that all of us probably got when we were our first couple of jobs as well. The challenge of those types of programs is they're very expensive, right? When you grow that and you do 8,000 job placements a year, it's very complex, very expensive, and sometimes it can get fatigue in the system. So funders can get fatigued, companies can get fatigued, city governments that are running this can get fatigued. I have to say I'm so pleased that Mayor Sheffield is strongly committed to this, that DTE, that the Ballmer Group, that the Skillman Foundation are all continuing to make sure that we invest in this program, that we have this as a resource. We can't let, one of the things we are really challenged with in this state is Sandy Brewer talks about it as the Michigan U. We talk about it as the Michigan 180. We start down a path, we do something great, and then we abandon it because it's inconvenient, because the economics have changed, because a term of office maybe is up, and so we move on to the next thing. Doing something consistently well for multiple years, for decades, is proven to help change trajectories. And so programs like GDYT that I know my good friend Nicole Sherrard-Freeman really expanded and continued to invest in at her time in the city, and that the foundation community continues to support, are really important for this community.
Thank you. We got two more questions. The first is Rhonda over here with Doc.
Yes, we have Dr. Nikolai Vitti. We're talking about young people, specifically talking about Grow Detroit Young Talent and also the education gap and where we rank as a state in terms of education at 44th. I feel like I could ask you the question, but I know that you have a question.
Good morning, everyone. Great panel, and Dennis, you continue to show why you're the best moderator panels in the region. And
Yes.
First, Joe, I appreciate you bringing up and lifting the issue of internships. It is, I constantly say in Detroit, we don't have a talent gap, we have an opportunity gap. And we narrow that gap with paid internships. And that's something that we're doing now in DPSCD with our high school redesign work. So I invite those on the panel and really throughout the crowd to get involved in that. We're going to create a task force to do that. But my question is, we talk about education and the statewide challenge in education. It's really defined with a lack of, I think, leadership at the state level with balancing what we need as far as equal and equitable funding with greater accountability. It's actually a balance between both issues. And we had a great example right now where the Senate wants to increase funding and move it to equal and equitable funding, but the House, the Democrats control the Senate, the House is against it because there's not enough accountability measures. And both parties can't seem to agree on accountability and equal equitable funding. So my question is, knowing that we know who the most likely are the two candidates for governor, both the Republican and the Democrat party, what is the business community doing to proactively ensure that both candidates with either party can actually bring both parties together to create the kind of reform and investment that's needed to improve education statewide?
Jeff, you want to tackle that first?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, Dr. Vitti is a tremendous leader too, and let's give him a round of applause for all the work that he's done. I think we're trying to take your example, Dr. Vitti, because you have driven accountability, you have put a tremendous amount of more resources into the K-12 system here in the city of Detroit to the state level. For both candidates, from major party candidates that are going to emerge, I think we've seen plans come out on education. The business community has its own plan, which starts with the governor's got to take leadership over education, de jure and de facto. Someone has to actually bring us together, figure out that balance of, you don't just throw money at a system that is not able to use it well, that you don't understand how we're going to get to the outcomes that we need. Do we need more money? Absolutely. Do we need to make sure that it goes to the right places? Because poverty is a form of trauma, and when people are in trauma, you've got to make sure that they have extra resources to be able to learn at the same rate as others. Absolutely, we need to make sure we do that. But we also don't, want to throw money into a place where it's not actually going to achieve those goals. We want to make sure that the right system is in place, the right curriculum, the right teacher training and supports, the right pay for teachers. All of those things come along with a weighted formula funding, which is what I know the business community supports. So when we talk to every one of the candidates for governor today, our first question for them is, what's your plan for education? And if you don't have one, let's talk about the one that we have and how you can incorporate it. The plan that was just put out by Secretary Benson on Mackinac Island, actually, she used that forum to be able to launch her own plan. It started with the Michigan Education Guarantee, which was something that Launch Michigan, which Dr. Vitti and Ron Hall and I sit on the board of, have been pushing. It's to say we need a high standard for a high school diploma. What should a high school diploma represent in this state? Right now, it's two things. It's you've been in your seat long enough and you've been exposed to certain subjects. It doesn't mean that you mastered any skill. It doesn't mean that you have actually been given the competencies and the tools to be successful. As a state, we need to say there's a higher standard. And then we need to build the system back towards that with resources, with the right supports, with the right accountability. So absolutely, we are pushing every single candidate to get there. We want to also be the implementation partners. So it's not just saying, go and do this, but let's be supportive and get behind you and put our shoulder to the wheel.
Joy, you want?
Yeah, I just want to add, I couldn't do any better than Jeff, but let me just say that each candidate, though, the one blessing in all of this is that it is at the top of the list. If you look at the priorities for the candidates across the board, they're talking about education for the first time that I can recall in a meaningful way. And so we are in a unique period where we have the opportunity to make a difference, but we can't keep flip-flopping. And that's what happens. We start down a path, we see progress, there's a change in administration, and then we backtrack. We want to, blow the whole thing up and start all over again. What we learned from the Mississippi Miracle was really not a miracle. It was consistency. It was they stayed the course for 10 years and the improvements came. They supported the teachers. They made sure that there was tutoring available for the children. And then we also funded properly the education of those children. It's not a miracle. It's a pretty straightforward recipe. You just got to stick to it. And so that would be the plug that I put before policymakers is like, listen, we got to commit. So whatever we commit to, based on all the research, educators know what they need. They know what they need in the classroom. Support them, but let's stay the course and not keep flip-flopping each administration and changing the policies that underpin our schools.
Thank you. Rhonda, did we have one more?
We do have
Carla?
one more, and I see the two besties are here talking. Ron Hall Jr., who's had a lot of shout outs today. Good to see you. Any additional comment before I move to Carla?
I don't do well on the spot. Right? No, I don't. Thank you. I appreciate all the leadership from lots of great people.
Yes. Well, it's great that you're here and great to hear everything that you are doing in terms of that education gap. Carla, I think it's great to end with you. You're a sponsor of this event with Walker Miller. We heard about your partnership with DTE Energy. Thank you so much for all you do for our communities.
Thank you. And thank you for that. Thank you, Hiram and team, for curating such an amazing panel. I just didn't want the moment to pass without us acknowledging the historic nature of this panel. We have a Black woman and two openly gay men representing the state of Michigan. The other thing that this moment has brought to us is Joy from DTE actually openly inviting businesses, Black businesses, brown businesses, small businesses. Dave Coulter, before he was invited out of the room full of Black business people, actually said, we need you to do business in Oakland County. I was in a meeting, a Detroit small business meeting where Mayor Sheffield said, how many people are doing business with the city of Detroit? And the number was minuscule. So this is an opportunity for all of us to walk into. And I wanted to ask the panel, what can we do? What can the business community do to help small, mid-sized businesses walk into the opportunities that they've been denied for so long? Thank you.
Joy?
I think that thank you, Carla, and Carla is such a great partner.
Superstar.
A great partner, doing amazing things, and understanding how to navigate big companies like ours is really the impediment that I've found. When I often hear about a small business that's really trying to break through, they don't know where to start, right? They don't know where that connection point is. And so what we are trying to do is create that pathway and do it deliberately by way of outreach, but also by way of partnerships with larger companies. So what we attempt to do is take, let's just say, a large construction company and have them partner with another smaller construction company as a sub. And those two together merge and work on a really big project together. And that then teaches that small business about how to interact with larger companies. They build relationships as a result, and then they can then go off on their own and leveraging that network to expand their business. And we've seen success stories like Carla's. She's now operating in multiple states. Our supply chain team is charged, and I see one of our supply chain team members in the audience here. They're charged with going out and cultivating these relationships, seeking out small businesses and allowing for them to connect. We also give grants. We give grants much like you see on TV, where you have the companies come and present.
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, like Shark Tank. They come and make a pitch. And then we will provide them with a grant through our foundation. And this supports economic development. And these small grants, they're, $5,000, $10,000, but when you think about a small business, that's a lot of money.
Right.
That's a lot of seed money for them to begin to expand and develop their programming. We're also showcasing how they need to construct their business. We're connecting them with attorneys or accountants, just so that they have all the resources necessary to be successful. Create that ecosystem that small businesses can continue to develop. But we're one company.
Right.
We need 5 more, 10 more, 13, 14, 20 more to do the same thing. And I'm encouraging the larger businesses inside of our ecosystem to take up this mantle and to continue to offer opportunities and access to small business owners.
I mean, Hiram go ahead,
Oh, I
Dave.
was just going to say, I just want you to know, we're doing that on a county level. So if you're in Oakland County and want to invest in it, when I became county executive, I said, it's great when we lure a big business from overseas, or General Motors invests $4 billion in Lake Orion like they did, but what are we doing to help our small businesses, and in particularly minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses, to either start or grow a business there? And so we used some of our ARP dollars to stand up what has now become a nonprofit called Oakland Thrive. And if you're a small business or you're thinking of opening a business, they have just what you talked about, Joy, the lawyers, the marketing people, help you to do a business plan, help to connect you to capital, help you to connect you to larger companies that are looking for vendors. And so it's a countywide effort. And if you're a small business that wants that help, or if you're a larger company that's been successful but don't have the capacity to do the kind of large scale things that DTE does, help support Oakland Thrive, because that's their mission every day, to start small businesses and grow small businesses in Oakland County.
And I just want to add to that. I mean, I think, I'm so proud to have Joy and Carla and Ron and Michael on our board, the conversations aren't ending in rooms like this. In boardrooms like Business Leaders for Michigan, we're having these exact same conversations. So it's powerful to have these leaders in rooms, making sure that we are knocking down barriers, that we are actually being deliberate about this.
So Hiram did not want to introduce me, but he's here to take me off of the stage. So we're going to wrap. I was remiss in not acknowledging our elected officials. If you're an elected official, please stand or wave.
Like the sheriff over there.
Thank you for your service. I want to thank each of you for being here, and I will just end with this. The generation before us asked whether we could build the greatest industrial economy in the world. Our generation must answer a different question. Can we build a Michigan that is innovative enough to compete globally, inclusive enough to create opportunity for everyone, Carla, and bold enough that our children and grandchildren choose to build their futures here? The answer will not depend on what we say in rooms like this, but on what we do when we leave them. Thank you.
Excellent.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here with our post conversation of Pancakes and Politics, where we heard from Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter, along with the President and CEO of DTE Energy, Joy Harris, as well as the CEO from the Business Leaders of Michigan, Jeff Durnini. And so now we have Dr. Nikolai Vitti here, really to recap what we talked about. And you had a question because we talked a lot about the state of education here in Michigan, and that we're ranked 44 as compared to the rest of the country, and that we're in a dire situation right now. But you really had a call to action in Lansing as to what we do about it.
Well, what I've seen over the years is, and this is representative across the country, but let's stay focused on Michigan, is you have Democrats that typically get it right around needing to fund K-12 education at higher levels. And in Michigan, we're still not equal when you look at per pupil funding, where we have wealthier suburban districts generating more per pupil than, let's say, Detroit, because they're relying on their local millage, which generates more per pupil. So the Democrats are getting it right on, we need to fund education better. Republicans are much better at, we need more accountability. What does a high school diploma actually mean? Are there skills that we can define that go along with that? Performance of districts or individual schools, is there real accountability around performance? And the opportunity is actually to merge both critiques and strategies together. And I think what needs to happen is our next governor needs to be the leader to bring both parties together. And so my question was about, what is the business community doing to bring Republicans, Democrats together and having that come together with the next governor? Because I think that's where the opportunity lies.
And I think we did hear, too, from Joy Harris saying from what she sees in those conversations with business leaders and the candidates on both sides, the top candidates right now polling on both sides, is that they're both talking about education. What are you hearing, and how does that resonate with you in terms of it being a focus?
Yeah, I would say optimistically, they're both talking about it, which they're being good politicians, meaning they're hearing it from the business community. They're hearing it from people, real people that say, the public school systems have to get better across Michigan. But I'm still skeptical about whether we're going to see the blend of the right balance between what the Democrats are saying around funding and what the Republicans are saying around accountability. It's going to take the right leader to blend both and not get ideological based on their own party to say, well, it's about just funding or it's just about accountability. I haven't heard either candidate, which I think, we know who the two candidates are going to be. I haven't heard either one of them blend the two yet. That's what I'll be working on and trying to push the business community to support that.
What would be an ideal model in terms of the support that public school leaders need from our state government?
Yeah.
Who needs to be making these decisions? Why is it so tricky? Why does it change from administration to administration?
Well, one, it's sort of cliche, but our policies still aren't focused on best practice. They're often driven by ideology, and we get caught up in like culture war issues around things like critical race theory or transgender issues, which is not at the core of K-12 work. So that's one problem. And they often are red meat issues that get people really excited, but really don't address the core issues. Just practically, other states have gotten equitable funding right. Moving to a weighted student formula where not every student is funded equally. When you're looking at concentration of poverty, you're looking at special needs, you're looking at students that are English as a second language learners, and then that comes with additional funding. At the same time, other states have made more progress around the accountability issues. Like before you get a high school diploma, you should have to demonstrate certain skills in both literacy, math, and let's say civics. And that needs a scaffold from 3rd grade all the way to 10th to 12th grade. Simple measures like that, I think will create a better balance of the funding issue and the accountability issues.
So as a superintendent of a school district, what role do you play in that accountability?
Yeah, well, one, I definitely try to advocate and talk about it, but we're doing it in Detroit. You know, we now have what we call end of course exams at all of our at the high school level, where kids take an algebra test, algebra 2 test, an U.S. history test, you know, a biology test to define what they should know at the end of every high school course. We give a letter grade to every school in DPSCD, A through F, based on enrollment levels, chronic absenteeism, literacy and math proficiency rates, growth rates, surveys of students. These are models that happen in other states. And so I talk about accountability at the state level, but we're doing it in Detroit.
How does that change your graduation rates when you're kind of raising the bar on the expectations of the level of education that kids have before they can graduate?
Well, our graduation rate, when I started, you know, after the pandemic, we were in the 60s, 60%. Now we're at 83%, only 1 percentage point away from the state. And a most recent national study on recovery since the pandemic places DPSCD 91st in a percentile ranking. This is suburban and large urban school districts, an improvement in at and above grade level performance in literacy and math. So we're moving the needle. So when I talk about it, people are like, well, you're just talking about funding. Actually, as superintendent in Detroit, I talk about funding and accountability, which a lot of my peers aren't talking about as far as superintendents in the country. And this is a good example of how I think we can bridge a gap between Republicans and Democrats.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
Well, thank you. It's much needed, not only for Detroit, but the entire state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Well,
I
thank you for
appreciate it,
having me.
Dr. Vitti. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side. We're going to talk more about education here in the state. And we are back with our overdrive conversation following the Michigan Chronicle's Pancakes and Politics, where we have one of our panelists.
Yeah.
We learned so much about you, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us here. Business leaders of Michigan representing CEOs from across the state, and also Ron Hall Jr., one of the CEOs
That's
here
right.
in Detroit with Bridgewater. But you also collaborate on education. So tell me a little bit more about Launch and what it is and what it's doing in terms of this education gap we have here in the state.
Yeah, Launch Michigan was put together because we saw the slide in Michigan's education performance from, a top 10 state or a top 20 state now down to a bottom 10 state, whether it's reading, whether that's overall performance. And so we said, what, part of the problem that we have is we keep going back and forth. We pick a direction and we can't stick with it beyond a term of office because, we're a purple state, beyond an economic crisis or anything like that. So we said, what is going to help us be able to build common ground, build trust? We got together the business community with the education community, with the foundation community, and said, let's come up with a plan for the state. And Launch Michigan has that plan to improve education, to set a high standard for a high school diploma, to make sure that we have kids that are able to read and have the tools that are necessary to succeed.
All right. Well, you're a product of the education system here, and also a part of Launch Michigan. Tell me what the plan is, what it looks like.
Well, first I'd add that I think it's a little bit of a coming out party for Launch Michigan. Only in the last couple of years has it formed as a legal entity, a legal nonprofit entity with a formal board and all that. Prior to that, as Jeff indicated, for many years, there were stakeholders from philanthropy and business and the education sector working together in kind of a quasi-organized task force fashion away from media and all that. This is like 6 and 7 years of work before we filed to become Launch Michigan and formed a board and so forth. And what you're seeing is really the culmination of about a decade's work behind the scenes of people who are passionate about this space, who understand the importance of it, trying to push it to the surface of the state's policy agenda. So that's who Launch is. I don't think I directly answered your question, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, so now I'm understanding, this has been nearly a decade of work. So where have you come? Where are you now? And what's happening to help us get to where we're no longer 44th in the state?
Lots of work to keep all the stakeholders in the boat, I think, has been one of the most successful things we've accomplished. A lot of people don't know and aren't used to the notion that the business community and the teachers union and the superintendents association, supported by philanthropy, can all be working together, coming into closed rooms, talking about what their real fears are about the other, their real concerns are about trying to collaborate in this space, and pushing through that, hiring consultants, talking with data, getting on the same page, if you will, where we can really begin to talk publicly about, okay, these are the things that we're aligning on. This is the 80% of it that everybody agrees with. And we are all increasingly sensitive to the urgency. Let's get going. Let's get all the elected and political officials on board. I'm really excited about it. We hired a former state deputy superintendent to kind of lead the organization. She's brilliant, lots of policy background and so forth, understands the inside workings of how the State Department of Education and various administrations, regardless of which party is in power in the governor's mansion, works together. All that is helping us move this along.
I talked to Dr. Vitti prior to you just about what's happening in Lansing, and that sense of optimism, but also politics, knowing that, the state is talking about education. So as political leaders and candidates, we should be talking about it too. Do you feel like it's beyond talk and the conversations you're having behind closed doors?
This is a really important election year because, we're going to have a new governor, a new secretary of state, attorney general. We'll have a new Senate leader because Senator Winnie Brinks is termed out. And you don't know what's going to happen with control of the legislature overall. In 2018, when this same situation came about, we talked about fix the damn roads that year, right? And that became a decades-long conversation. Today, this year, education is the fix the damn roads conversation, right? That we are going to be committed to not just doing one thing, putting a little more money in, passing an accountability law, doing something and then walking away, but that we're going to be at it together for 5, 10, 15 years. That's what we've seen in other states that have made massive progress.
Yeah. Well, this is about all the time we have, but I feel like the Launch Michigan conversation and this coalition of leaders is something that we would like to delve into
Absolutely.
even more. Local 4 has a focus on this as well, and the role we can play as a media partner to raise awareness and also to have these conversations publicly about what responsibilities we all have and what we can do about it to fix it.
That's right. We all want our kids to be successful.
Yeah.
And if we start
so that
there,
you can hire them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's all full circle. Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It was really great hearing from you for the first time.
Thank
and it's
you.
always great to see you and your footprint here in the community and all that you do. And now even knowing you're doing even more as it relates to helping to bridge this education gap. So thank you very much, both of you. And that'll do it for us here from Pancakes and Politics. And now we're going to take a pause for the summer before we resume these great conversations later on this year.